Buckingham Palace has 775 rooms, sits on 39 acres in the most expensive city in Europe, and is currently in the middle of a refurbishment costing British taxpayers around £369 million. King Charles III cannot sell it, he cannot mortgage it. He cannot leave it to whoever he likes in his will. He does not, in the sense that word normally means, own it. And Buckingham Palace is only the beginning. The Crown Estate, the Crown Jewels, Windsor Castle, the Swans, the seabed around Britain. The list of things the most famous royal family on earth does not actually own is genuinely astonishing. And there's a question running underneath all of it, because the answer is worth more than any palace. If he doesn't own the palaces, what exactly is he worth? By the end, the real number is going to look very small next to the crown on his head. Let's start with the biggest thing he doesn't own, the Crown Estate. More than 190,000 acres of land, huge stretches of central London, including most of Regent Street, retail parks, farmland, forests, and unusually the seabed around England, Wales and Northern Ireland, out to 12 nautical miles, which is why every offshore wind farm in British waters has to deal with them. The portfolio has been reported at well north of £15 billion. Here is the legal reality. The Crown Estate belongs to the reigning monarch in right of the crown. That phrase, in right of the crown, is doing enormous work. It means the assets belong to the institution of the monarchy, not to the human being currently wearing it. The monarch cannot sell it. The revenues do not belong to him. And that arrangement has a date and a very specific cause. Money trouble. In 1760, King George III came to the throne with the crown's finances in a mess. He struck a deal with Parliament. He handed over the net revenues of the crown lands, and in exchange received a fixed annual payment, the civil list, to cover the costs of running the monarchy. It was meant to be a reasonable trade. It became, over 265 years, the single worst business decision in the history of European royalty. Every monarch since George III has renewed the same bargain at the start of their reign, and the estate they handed over kept growing. Today, the arrangement produces the sovereign grant, calculated as a percentage of Crown Estate profits, and running well over £100 million a year. In the 2025 to 2026 financial year, it rose sharply, largely on the back of profits from those offshore wind leases. So the royal family receives a slice of the profits of an estate they surrendered before the United States existed. A generous income, certainly, but an income, not ownership. A tenant with a very good lease, and the scale of what was given away keeps growing in ways George III could never have imagined. When he signed in 1760, the seabed was worthless. Nobody had any use for the mud 12 nautical miles off the Norfolk coast. Then came offshore wind. The Crown Estate now leases those waters to energy companies, and in one recent round, those leasing agreements transformed the estate's profits, which is exactly why the sovereign grant jumped. A deal struck in the reign of a king who lost the American colonies is now indexed to the North Sea wind. That is what 265 years of compounding does to a contract. There are also the parts that sound like folklore and are actually law. The monarch holds a claim to unmarked mute swans in open water in parts of the Thames, a right dating back centuries and still marked each year by the ceremony of swan-upping. Sturgeon, whales and dolphins found in British waters are royal fish. None of it is worth meaningful money. All of it belongs to the crown rather than the man. Next, the palaces themselves. Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, the Palace of Holyrood House, Kensington Palace, St James's Palace. These are the occupied royal palaces. They are held by the monarch in right of the crown, in trust for the nation, and they pass automatically to whoever is on the throne next. Charles lives in them. He cannot sell one. If he decided tomorrow that Windsor was surplus to requirements, there is no mechanism by which he could put it on the market and bank the proceeds. And they are expensive to keep. Buckingham Palace is undergoing a decade-long program of essential repairs, replacing the wiring, the plumbing and the heating, at a cost of around £369 million, funded through the sovereign grant and due to complete around 2027. Read that as a business, and it inverts. This is an asset the family cannot sell, cannot borrow against, and must spend hundreds of millions maintaining. In any other portfolio on Earth, that is not an asset at all. It is a liability with a very good address. Then the crown jewels, the imperial state crown, the sovereign's scepter holding Cullinan I, at over 500 carats, one of the largest cut diamonds in the world, the koh-i-noor. Around 140 objects, roughly 23,000 gemstones, held at the Tower of London. The collection is functionally priceless, in the specific sense that it has never been valued for sale because it cannot be sold. The crown jewels are held in trust by the monarch for the nation. They are regalia, used in coronations, and not a store of family wealth. And the one time a British monarch tried to treat the regalia as money, it ended badly for everyone. During the Civil War, Charles I pawned and broke up royal jewels to fund his armies, and after his execution in 1649, Parliament ordered the remaining regalia destroyed. Gold was melted down and sold, stones were prized out and disposed of. Almost everything in the tower today postdates 1661, remade for the coronation of Charles II. That is the historical lesson baked into the current arrangement. The last time this fortune was liquid, it was liquidated. The rules that stop Charles III selling a single stone exist because Charles I could. Compare that to the treasure I've covered elsewhere in a temple vault in India, or the private art of the princes of Liechtenstein who sold a Leonardo da Vinci in 1967 when they needed the money. The Liechtensteins could sell their masterpiece. Charles cannot sell a single stone. Even the royal collection, over 1 million objects including works by Leonardo, Vermeer and Rembrandt, one of the largest art collections in the world, is held in trust by the monarch for his successors and the nation, not personal property. Now here's where it turns, because the picture so far makes the man sound like a caretaker. He is not. What does Charles actually own? Start with the Duchy of Lancaster, a private estate dating back to 1265, comprising land, property and assets worth roughly £650 million. It is the monarch's private inheritance, and it generates a private income of over £20 million a year. That money is his, and it funds his private expenditure. Then the genuinely personal houses. Sandringham House in Norfolk, bought by the future Edward VII in 1862, and Balmoral Castle in Scotland, purchased by Prince Albert in 1852. Elizabeth II inherited them from her father, and Charles inherited them from her. These two he owns outright. He could sell Balmoral tomorrow. Nobody could stop him. And the reason those two are private is a small accident of Victorian shopping. Albert and Victoria wanted a Scottish retreat and a Norfolk estate, and they bought them with their own money rather than taking them as crown property. Two purchases, made 170 years ago, are the reason the modern monarch has any significant real estate of his own at all. There is one more private engine worth naming, the Duchy of Cornwall, an estate of around 130,000 acres established in 1337 to provide an income for the heir to the throne. It funded Charles for decades as Prince of Wales. On his accession, it passed to Prince William. It is not the king's. It belongs to whoever is next in line, which makes it the only major royal asset that moves down the family rather than up. There is also a private art and jewelry collection, an inherited stamp collection built by George V and considered one of the finest in the world, racehorses and investments. Add all of it together, and the Sunday Times rich list puts King Charles III at around £640 million. £640 million. That is a large fortune by any human standard. It is also, by the standards of this channel, modest. It made him roughly the 238th richest person in his own country. There are hedge fund managers in London who could buy him twice over. For comparison, the King of Thailand is estimated at around $43 billion. The Al Nahyan family of Abu Dhabi has been valued by Bloomberg at over $300 billion. Charles isn't in the same postcode, let alone the same league. And if this is the kind of thing worth more of, subscribe, because I am working through these families one by one, the ones with the famous names and the ones nobody can pronounce. So the question, if he doesn't own the palaces, what is he worth? About £640 million. And the reason is the most interesting part of the whole story. The British monarchy is rich in things it cannot touch and comparatively poor in things it can. It has the address, the jewels, the art, the acreage, the swans on the Thames and the seabed under the wind farms, and it has almost no ability to convert any of that into money. That was not an accident. and it was not a defeat. It was a trade, made in 1760 and renewed by every single monarch since. In exchange for handing the estate to the nation, the family got something the Romanovs, the Habsburgs, the Ottomans, the Qajars and the Shahs of Iran did not get. They got to keep the throne. Every one of those dynasties held its wealth privately and absolutely. Every one of them was overthrown, exiled or executed, and the wealth vanished with the crown. The Windsors gave the money to the state, and the state gave them permanence. So when the headline says the royal family is worth £15 billion, or 30, or whatever the number is that week, understand what's being counted. Those are national assets with a family living in them. The family's own balance sheet is £640 million, a private estate from 1265, 2 houses in the country, and a very good stamp collection. The richest-looking family in the world quietly runs one of the smallest royal fortunes on earth. And it is precisely because they don't own Buckingham Palace that they're still living in it. If this was worth your time, subscribe. Next, I'm opening the story of a royal family that kept every penny privately and then lost all of it in a single night. I'll see you there.